Exactly. So especially when we're getting open expanses of clover in the sward on the pasture, obviously the bloat risk is there. And so very, very important to identify such pastures and invoke preventative treatment modalities if that's the case. So again, very important to keep an eye on what's happening on the ground and obtain the right advice as far as preventative strategies. So generally there are a number of bloat preventative strategies, whether it's dosing anti-bloat medications through the water, or indeed sometimes putting rumen capsules into animals to prevent these conditions. It's another big risk at this time of year. So,
and cure, do you still spike and from upwind?
Well, absolutely. There is curative treatments that can involve just drenching and getting rid of the froth in the rumen, which is what causes the problem. And we still sometimes have to resort to the old-fashioned just smacking a trocar into that rumen and getting rid of the pressure. So, and as if you've got an animal that's down and in dire straits, then certainly a bloat stab is sometimes required by the farmer themselves. And so I guess just to reiterate, if that sort of emergency treatment is required, it's obviously the left-hand side of the animal, and you'll sort of detect the tympany or the very tight gas-like sound that comes from a distended gaseous rumen, and then just make the stab very, very high so that we get minimal chance of contamination within the abdominal cavity, and then it's much easier for the vet to come along and repair the damage once things are sorted out.
As I said, you should be upwind when you do it.
Yeah, and definitely don't smoke.
No. Now, toxic weeds, because weeds are growing quicker than pasture.
Absolutely. So it is that time that we're getting a lot of weed growth, and it's very pertinent to just be aware of some of the toxic species. It's a little bit too an extensive a list to go through everything right here in the space of a few minutes. But particularly if you're looking at with sheep, yarding animals and things, just have a really good look around the yard area, and if there's toxic species, pyropyra, or a number of native species are toxic, then just be aware, and if you're a bit concerned, identify the weed or get rid of it before there's chance for animals to be grazing. And likewise, when we're looking at trimming the ornamentals around the household and around the household garden, just be a little bit aware of where you're putting the pile, the compost pile or the pile to be burnt. There are a number of ornamental species that are exceptionally toxic, yew and the likes, and really, to be honest, there's just no coming back. Yew in particular is a very bad species that's very prominent ornamental that'll just knock animals over very, very quickly if they get access to it.
And of course, dry matter at the bottom of your pasture and staggers.
Absolutely, where there's been a lot of redundant sort of growth and a lot of redundant rotting matter at the bottom of the sward, and we've had a bit of moisture, fungal growth is a great it's a great sort of season and great environment for fungal growth. And then there's a number of diseases that are caused through these fungal toxins and fungi that live in these environments. Ryegrass staggers is the classic, not in itself particularly fatal, but it does result in a lot of deaths through misadventure. So the animals lose all their coordination and often will end up drowning in water troughs and things like this. Horses also not immune to ryegrass staggers, so just be aware of that. And if you've got a staggery horse, sometimes to the point of going down, just don't always think the worst, and it could be something as simple as ryegrass staggers.
Humid weather, fly strike.
Absolutely. So humidity is the driver for fly development. We've got when we've got a bit of hotter weather and still a bit of moisture, fly could be a potential problem. So again, be very, very vigilant, particularly when we're looking at lambs, this season's lambs that may be a little bit daggy. Definitely be aware. It can go unnoticed, and it sometimes, especially for the lifestyle farmers out there, it's only a mild little bit of discoloration in the fleece, and if you've got a crook animal that's not looking too well, just have a look, because it could well be the case. Not only around the backside, but also on the flanks, can also be a good area, and up the back can also be a
There's
really...
that horrible green blowfly, isn't there, from Australia?
Yeah, very prolific. So we have two types of blowfly. We have what we call primary strike flies and Licilia caprina. The green fly is the one you've just mentioned. That they can lay maggots onto normal tissue, and the maggots will eat through normal live tissue and skin. Secondary strike flies obviously will take advantage of already damaged tissue. So if you've got a wound or whatever, then secondary strike flies can lay their maggots into the rotting flesh or the damaged flesh, but primary strike flies are bad.
Nick, is ringworm still a problem?
Can be, particularly in cattle. And again, another fungal disease, we say ringworm. It's a bit of a misnomer actually, it's nothing to do with worms. It's a fungal disease of the skin. And with young cattle, yearling cattle in particular, this is the time of year that we'll often see that. So just be aware of these risks, and if we've got early signs of outbreak of ringworm, sometimes it's easier to get them through the yards and treat them with concentrated copper solutions or the like before we start getting big epidemics.
So, and it's contagious to New Zealanders, or to human beings, I should say,
It
not
can
just
be.
New Zealanders.
Absolutely. So it's one of a number of diseases we call zoonoses, and so it is, the fungi can be transferred to humans, and humans can get the ringworm themselves, the ringworm lesions. A little bit less common in adults or middle to young adults that have often been exposed to the bug before, but young human beings and older human beings that haven't got such a good functional immune system or haven't been exposed before, certainly very high risk of that.
Now, facial eczema, North Island, I know, but it's important.
Yeah, so again, a fungal condition, and because of the potential risk, it is an important time of year to be monitoring. So spore counts are the thing to be doing, and if we've got very high spore counts on pasture, sporidesmin spores, then preventative action with zinc treatment to prevent the action of the toxin is important. So just to reiterate, for those not totally au fait with the condition, the fungal spore produces a toxin which damages the liver. A consequence of that liver damage is chemicals accumulating in the bloodstream and in the skin which are photosensitive. So then the sunlight comes along, particularly on white areas of skin. So if we're talking about Frisians, yeah, then we get bad skin disease. That's the external sign of the disease, but the primary problem is the liver itself.
Thank you very much indeed.